Good night to you and a good morning to me. My name is Nibs. I'm your vampire storyteller for this evening. Right now, I am reading true scary stories off of Reddit, but eventually I would love to hear scary stories from you, the listeners. If you could please go to my bio, find my email, and write in your scariest encounters: true crime, ghosts, aliens, anything that will send a bone chill down your spine, or anything that you remember that made you ess your pants. I want it all. Please send it my way. Tonight, I have 3 scary stories for your enjoyment. I found them all off of Reddit, and to my knowledge, they are as true as can be. But I would appreciate if you can send me your scary stories. If anything that I share with you tonight reminds you of any of your experiences, please find the link in my bio, send me an email, and tell me all about it. There is nothing more that I love than reading scary stories first thing when I wake up at night. It sets the night off on the right foot, and I want to share that with you. So let's get into it. This story comes from Strange Gur 7077. Gur, not GIR. Thank you, Strange Gur. It starts: the neighborhood I grew up in was right next to a college campus. The campus was pretty heavily wooded, but very pretty. And since it was so close, we would walk our dogs or just hang out around the campus. One night, when I was 16, my friends and I had been out driving around when we wanted to scare ourselves, so we parked and got out of the car. This part of campus was super close to my house, and normally I would have just walked, but we had been out driving anyway. Quick side note: it's important that I share the layout of this part of campus. There was one parking lot that was bigger and more in the forest. This is the one that we parked in. From this lot, there is a small trail that winds through some pretty thick forest, and for about a quarter mile from there, it led onto a paved trail in the middle of a hill. On the left side, up the hill, are some buildings, just offices and whatnot, and down the hill leads to the tree line. This tree line always creeped me out because on multiple occasions I found dead deer lying just past the tree line. Probably coincidence, just another animal, but it always weirded me out. Anyway, this path is super short, maybe 200 feet, and then leads to another parking lot, which is right across the street from my house. So, this night we walked down the path. It was almost pitch black, and all we had were our phone flashlights. Trying to scare each other, we would gasp and point to the trees or jump out at each other from behind. I am very easily spooked. So I was already on edge when all of a sudden, seemingly out of the shadows, we see a man walking down the path towards us. I already don't like the direction this is going. He looked perfectly normal, but he was wearing a nice suit and tie and was walking weird, like action figures do in TV shows. The weirdest part was that he had a big smile on his face. Not like a grin or a happy expression, but a big, toothy smile. We both jumped a bit, but rationally, it was not that crazy to see people around. College students were always walking around or camping in the woods, so passing someone in the path was not too unusual. As we walked by him, he nodded at us and said hello. We kept walking, giggling to each other until maybe 20 seconds later, when I turned around to see him stopped, turned around, looking at us. Oh, no, no, no. I urgently whispered to my friend, and we started to walk much faster. As we both turned around to see him beckoning to us, waving with one hand as telling us to come over here. No. Now, since this has happened, I have tried to rationalize in any way I can. Maybe we dropped something and he wanted to give it back to us, or maybe he was lost and needed directions. But why would he just wave and not shout or say anything to us? Instead, he just stood there. At this point, I'm fully freaking out, and to this day, I have never felt more unsettled. However, I was still trying to convince myself that there had to be some explanation. Maybe I knew him. Maybe he was just a weird college guy trying to scare us. Nonetheless, we walked as fast as we could without running until we reached the open paved path. We continued to look behind us but didn't see him again. At this point, we were terrified and decided we could not walk back through the trail and we would instead walk back through the parking lot to my house. Almost running, too scared to talk, we hurried to the parking lot. When we were about halfway down the path, I looked to my right down the hill. Standing right there at the tree line was a dark figure. It was too dark to make out any features, but it looked like a male figure, almost paralyzed with fear. I watched as he lifted his hand and beckoned straight towards us. That's when we sprinted. We ran straight through the parking lot and across the street to my house. We locked every door, closed all the windows, and stayed all night huddled under my bed, barely sleeping. The next morning, we talked about what happened. Both of us agreed that the figure by the tree line must have been the man we passed, but there was no possible way that the man we passed could have made it to the tree line unless he had run at impossible speeds through the woods. But we both had our memories of the event, and they are the exact same. We told my parents, and they told us we were being dramatic. Oh my God. Or we were just seeing things. But we both remember the events exactly the same. We had to go back the next morning to retrieve my car. At first, we didn't notice anything amiss until I saw heavy, big human footprints around the back of the car, up the driver's side, and towards the front. We got out of there immediately, and I avoided going near that part at all costs. No one we have told believes us, but I will never be able to forget the feeling of seeing the dark figure wave towards us from the woods. Why does nobody believe you? That's so scary. And I also feel like that's a believable story. It's not like one of the dead deer I saw had a unicorn horn. No, this is a human. This is another scary human. I'm so sorry. This next story, I just want a trigger warning for anyone who's gone to prison or has been in jail. This user just has a dot as their username. The title is I was in prison for 15 years and there was an SW in there with us. Also, trigger warning for SWs. Okay, so a little background first. I was serving a 15-year sentence in a penitentiary in southern Arizona. What I was in there for isn't important. During my stay there were countless things that happened that no one could explain, even more that no one wanted to know more about. It all started with the prison legend. Supposedly, years ago, something awful and unexplainable happened in the prison. Every morning we'd be woken up and expected to stand near the front of our cells while guards visually confirmed we were present and accounted for. Apparently, about a year before I got sent there, the most brutal and unexplainable thing happened during one of these routines. A man who had a cell to himself looked very off during his check. When a guard pulled over another guard to help him check it out, they found it wasn't actually the prisoner they were expecting at all. It was a totally different man. This man wearing the skin of the other man loosely over him. Draped over him, apparently looked like a real-life monster. The scariest thing, though, was the guy wearing the skin was not an inmate. They had no idea how he even got into the prison, let alone the cell. What's worse is that they couldn't even figure out who the hell he was. He wasn't documented anywhere. And what's worse than that? Can anything get worse than that? All of that's pretty horrible. They never even found the body of the man whose skin he was wearing. Grisly stuff, I know. And I realize it's not the go-to definition of an SW, but that's what the prison called him, the SW. Didn't help that the guy never talked, apparently. Anyway, that's what started the whole SW superstition around the yard. Apparently, the guy got shipped to a different spot about a month after it happened, and just about everyone in Gen Pop felt all the better for it. I heard about the story on the second day of my stay. Now, onto the real shit though. Sure, that guy was the SW, but all he did in the long run was get an old lifer, Navajo inmate, to tell everyone about the actual SWs. It seemed like a lot of the prison culture actually revolved around them. Scary. Now, apparently, SWs are tricky to point out on the spot, but if you manage to survive around one for more than a minute or two, almost everyone can tell the mannerisms are off. They mimic human speech, but not replicate it. They twitch maniacally. They have an unnatural gait while walking, but apparently they got better with experience. The old Navajo guy, his name was Carl, said that he was sure there was an actual one among the prisoners, slowly picking us off over the years. He called it the Grand Master SW. At one point, apparently, he thought it had human mannerisms down so well that you might not even be able to tell it was your cellmate for a day or two. It had to be good, he positioned one night. He would expect an SW to jump at any opportunity for a kill, but this one realized it had a revolving door of people to kill coming to it and masterfully bided its time, as Carl thought, for years. A lot of the guys found humor in it. You are sitting ducks. How are you finding humor in that? I guess that's dark humor. You gotta find humor to survive things like this, right? A lot more were really on edge about it. Sometimes you just can't take it anymore, but in our yard, people tend to snap in a very special way. It wouldn't be an outburst at dinner or a silent suicide in the night. Guys would just stop talking, hunch over, and shuffle around. Any friendships they had would most likely be thrown out the window. No one liked to talk about it. Like if they did, it would happen to them next. I felt the same way. I didn't know if it was an SW or some people just going crazy, but I did not want to find out. It wasn't clockwork or anything, but every time someone snapped in this way, it wasn't more than a couple weeks before they were shipped off or transferred to God knows where without anyone else knowing beforehand. Then there were the nighttime occurrences. Short, loud bursts of sound echoed through my cell block during all hours of the night on a regular basis. It sounded like a mix between pigs dying, that is so sad, and nails on a chalkboard. Just another thing no one liked to talk about. Even scarier were the shadows and the footsteps. The block was dimly illuminated in the night by a few lights hanging from the ceiling outside of the cells. I myself saw shadows flit across the walls on a regular occasion when there were definitely no guards near my cell. One time, near the end of my sentence, I woke up and looked back at my wall and found a perfect silhouette of a person standing there, but when I looked, my bunkmate was asleep and no one was outside my cell. Whew, no thank you. And the footsteps? Everybody hated the friggin' footsteps. They were the scariest part. In the night, sometimes more rarely than the shadows, you would hear ungodly, fast footsteps. They sounded like wet feet slapping on tile floor. Whatever caused them would fly from one end of the block to the other in a dead sprint. Whatever it was inhumanly fast. If you had happened to be awake before it started, by the time that you heard the footsteps on your side of the cell and whipped your head around to see the thing run by, it sounded like it was 3 cells past you. Everyone hated the footsteps. I agreed. I thought they were the worst. I was released from that place about a month ago, and I have more stories than I can count. I swear it was nearly my turn. About a week before I was discharged, my cellmate and a good friend of mine snapped in the same kind of way. I didn't sleep for an entire week. Well, I didn't sleep, of course, but never for more than a few minutes at a time. Never turned my back on the guy. The scariest thing, I woke up one night to him somehow snaking his body through the bars of our cell. For reference, I couldn't get anything past my shoulder through them. The worst part, though, he was coming back in our cell. Oh, hell no. On the day of my release, I didn't say a word to him, just left. He seemed fine with it, and so was I. I had made it through 15 years of prison fights, gang disputes, and for all I know, S. Walker abductions. I left through the front gates, a free man. As I walked along the fence for the rec yard, I spotted my cellmate, standing off on his own, like he had for the last week or so. I shook my head, not even really sure if it was him anymore. I took one last look over the yard, this time from the other side of the fence. I wish I hadn't. There, standing off on his own, on the other side of the yard, was Carl, slouched over, eyeing the other inmates and twitching maniacally. Okay, so there it is. Carl was the scary thing in the prison this whole time. Carl was taking over people and doing God knows what to them. Oh my God. First of all, no named user, congratulations for getting out of there. That is, I can't even imagine the hell that you went through. Secondly, please share more of these scary stories. That is scary as hell. I can't imagine being a sitting duck in a place where you couldn't leave. You can't leave to go get safety. Wow. Well, I hope some of you can get some sleep after that. It's a good thing I have the next 12 hours to not think about this story. I don't even know what to say about this next story. I mean, I've done this, but that's because I'm a vampire and I can. This comes from a user named Commercial Flight 912, and the title is I am a frogger living in someone else's apartment right now. Ask me anything. Oh! They first started off with an update. Yes, I use AI for accurate translation. Stop bringing it up. English is my third language, and I run my text through AI for your convenience. Here we go. I am a 20-year-old woman, and for the past few months, I've been living as a frogger in an apartment inside a historic building in St. Petersburg, Russia. I found out about the place while working on a student report about an old residential building with my classmate. Let's call her Anya. Anya lived in one of those big old apartments, basically a Soviet era communal flat. It's a huge apartment split into separate rooms rented by unrelated people, all sharing the same kitchen and bathroom. Everyone has their own room key, plus keys to the building and the main apartment floor. While we were filming, Anya mentioned that people in her flat almost never lock their room doors. And the main door is often left open because tenants go in and out of the stairwell to smoke. I remember thinking, anyone who gets inside the building could just walk into this place. Kind of shocking. Because in Russia, everyone usually locks everything all the time. She also told me there were 2 locked storerooms inside the apartment that nobody had entered for years. Apparently, they belonged to the state. Both doors were secured with a simple padlock, held in place by screws. Screws you could remove with a basic screwdriver. I was curious. Because in old St. Petersburg's buildings, abandoned rooms sometimes hide interesting antiques. I forgot about that place until I dropped out of university. Oh, I lost my dorm room and I couldn't find an affordable apartment anywhere near my job. After wasting a month's salary on a tiny overpriced room in another communal flat, I suddenly remembered Anya's building. And then I had a ridiculous but tempting idea. I grabbed a small bag, a screwdriver, and went there to see if I'd be lucky or kicked out immediately. I arrived around 3 p.m. When most residents should be at work, I waited by the entrance and slipped in when somebody walked out. The apartment was unsurprisingly unlocked. I stepped in, ready to tell anybody who saw me that I was visiting Anya, but the shared areas were empty, so I pulled out a screwdriver and started removing the screws from one of the padlocks. My hands were shaking, but no one showed up, and eventually, the lock gave way. Inside was just a plain, empty storage room, not a hidden apartment, not a secret chamber filled with antiques, just 4 steps wide, 6 feet long, a dusty bike, and an old sewing machine in a wooden case. No window, a small ventilation hole, and 2 electrical outlets, only one of which worked. bare concrete walls and floor. I decided to see how long I could stay there. The first night felt like an adventure. It got very cold fast, so I ended up staying the night locked in the shared bathroom. After that, I went back to the storage room. When the tenants left for work, I tried checking the unlocked rooms. Oh, girl. I knocked first, and if no one answered, I peeked inside. That same day, I snagged a spare set of keys from one of the rooms, went back to my rented place, ordered a sleeping bag, a cheap heater, and a water filter online. The next time I turned to the storage room, it weirdly felt like home. Turns out Anya had moved out a long time ago. There were 6 rooms in the flat, and only 3 were occupied now. One by a mom and her kid, 2 by young women, and 1 by an old lady who constantly goes out to smoke in the stairwell. I attached a thin wire to the padlock outside so I can pull it back into place from the inside and make it look like it had been untouched. That's kind of genius, I'm not gonna lie. The storage room is right by the entrance and nobody pays attention to it, so no one's noticed me. I put a small mattress under my sleeping bag. I fill my water filter from the shared kitchen tap. I shower in the shared bathroom. The heater does a decent job in the tiny room, though I'm still scared that it will burn the one working outlet out, leaving me freezing in the winter. Every day I work, eat at a nearby canteen, walk around, talk to people. Then at night, I come back to my storage room. I live a pretty much normal life, and I don't pay insane rent. I would dare to say you don't pay any rent at all, which is dope. Save your money, but then get out of there because that sounds a little dangerous. After 6 months, it honestly feels like this is exactly how things are supposed to be. Update. OMG, such a huge amount of feedback. I expected people either wouldn't believe me or would just judge me for using AI. I don't think that's what they're judging you for. And that the post would just get buried. I think I already answered a lot of questions, and they're starting to repeat. I've responded to pretty much everything related to my situation. Honestly, I've only used Reddit twice, and I'm not an active user, so constantly checking the comments is really draining me emotionally. And being this open about my situation has been a serious test for my conscience. Please don't get angry if I ignore your questions. I've most likely already answered something similar. I'm going to step offline for a while. I'll check back when I feel ready. My heartfelt thanks to the people who wrote supportive words. I don't really deserve it, but I know for this, you're really wonderful people, and your capacity to empathy is a real virtue. That's crazy. You're living in a historic building for free right now? That's awesome! Maybe I need to ditch this place and go find myself my own historic building to go live in for a little bit because that sounds so sick, honestly. And in St. Petersburg, Russia? Oh my god, I'm so jealous. Wow. Check storage rooms, guys. Check all the storage rooms in the places that you're living at because you never know, you might have somebody living in there, living in the walls in your apartment building. Ow! So scary. Thank you so much for listening to these scary stories with me. I had so much fun reading them, and I hope you had even more fun listening to them. If you liked any of the stories that I read tonight, please comment, tell me which one you liked and why you liked it. That'll help me figure out what kind of content to put together for next week. And yeah, share with your spooky friends. If you have anyone else you know that likes to listen to scary stories or likes vampires, send my content their way. Drop a heart, leave a comment, share, save, all of the things. All these things help me more than you could possibly imagine. And I truly am so grateful from the bottom of my undead heart. Thank you again so much. I hope you all have a wonderful night, and I'll see you next week.